I am not exaggerating when I say I have thousands of writings. It's in this binder. See all these little tabbies here? These are my children. I'm wondering how much I actually want to give in these vlogs. Hello, ladies, men, and non-binary friends. Welcome back. We are here in a much cozier vibe, same location, cozier vibe, to talk about the book that I'm writing. And I'm very, very excited about it. Sorry, I'm very, very tired. I had my bachelorette party this past weekend, and I drank more that weekend than I think I have in my entire life. But it was great. It was so much fun. I had a great time, but I'm recovering. I wanted to make this video for a couple reasons. I know with the recent rise in AI writing and just AI in general, like infiltrating creative fields, there's been an understandable uptick in AI skepticism with regards to new publishing, and that has ended up ruining some people's publishing deals. Ultimately, these like AI detectors are the ones that are being used to scan this writing. And what we know about these AI detectors is that they're unreliable, they're bullshit. So I want to make these vlogs to talk about this project that I love and care about very much, this story that I'm very passionate about, these characters that are important to me, and this message and this theme that's important to me. But I also want to do it as a preservation of the timeline, so to speak, where there is a clear showcase of the work that I've done, so that if there's some random Republican who hates my videos and wants to try and crush my dreams, I can point to these videos and be like, hey, here is very clear proof that this is not AI. I have been working incrementally on this work for over a year and a half now. And yeah, just like protect myself and protect my work. I don't think any of my work reads like AI, just as a method of protecting myself and also an opportunity to share my writing, which is what I was planning on doing anyway. So it sort of ended up working out, but that was kind of like the push to get me to do it, because I was like, well, if we're relying on this software that we know doesn't work and we know is wildly inaccurate to prove whether or not people have used AI, then we're fucked. If that is being used to tank people's publishing deals, then we're fucked. This is the writing blog. Sorry, such a weird start to it. Usually I would have been like, oh my god, more energy, tagline, hook, but I kind of want this channel to be a little bit more low-key, maybe something that you listen to in the background while, I don't know, doing chores or something. I listen to videos on YouTube all the time. When I'm folding laundry, when I am cooking dinner, when I'm, doing whatever. It's nice to just like feel like someone's with you. So hopefully this can be a kind of vibe like that. But today I wanted to show you my current writing situation and my process regarding editing. So I finished my very first draft probably like a month ago, and it is a fantasy story. It's an epic fantasy, and it came out to 100,000 words. Now, for those of you who don't know, for debut novels, you have to pretty strictly operate within the genre standard of word count. So for epic fantasy, the genre standard is between 100,000 words and 120,000 words. So like I said, I'm currently around 100,000. I think it's like 103,000 or something like that. And I know it has become more than that as I have edited, but I'm glad I sort of gave myself that kind of buffer. And the process that I went about it, because I didn't really know whether or not this was going to be like the story. I am not exaggerating when I say I have thousands of writings, not just for my videos, but like little stories that I've written, fan fiction, like potential scripts. Like I have thousands of writings on my computer, on my Google Drive, on my Ellipsis now that I'm moving from Google Drive to Ellipsis because it's been like infiltrated by AI. So many ideas. So I don't always start a story thinking that it's going to be like, oh, this is going to be made into a book, because I just don't know if I have the inspiration for that or the drive or the excitement about the project. So I kind of just write. I write constantly. I write all the time. I have my phone with me. I have my little ellipsis app that I've like Jimmy rigged on my phone. And I am writing constantly. Anytime I have a new idea about a character, a scene, whatever, I will write it down. And I recommend any of you who are writers to do that, because for me, I've gone back to things that I've worked on years ago and revisited them and been like, oh my gosh, I love this idea. And I feel like I have the tools now that I can flesh this out and make this into something really cool. This is all to say, for this current story, it started out with 2 characters. I wanted to do a druidic witch princess. I know, shocking. And a dragon rider. Because honestly, we need more magic in fantasy. I'm so sick of these epic fantasy stories that have like one person that can do magic. I want more magic in fantasy. I'm so very sorry. I need magic. So I had this idea of the 2 of them on a balcony, like maybe flirting, talking, whatever. And it was this druidic witch who was very confident and proud of her heritage and her family and her magic. And this sort of reserved prince who was maybe a little socially awkward, but very, very smart and like eager to get to know her, but maybe like struggling to connect. And it started there. And then I began to build out, okay, based on their personalities, what is their family like? You know, what are the family dynamics? And the druidic witch, she is, again, very confident. She's very proud of herself. So I was like, okay, like, let's give her like a really supportive family unit. So she has 2 younger sisters. She has her parents, the king and queen of Noblewood is their kingdom. Very healthy family dynamic. Cyric, who is the dragon rider prince, he has a little bit more of a complicated family situation. I'm wondering how much I actually want to give in these vlogs, because I don't want to like give a spoiler or like something that is retroactively like teased in the later part of the book, but I will give as much as I feel is necessary to understand. And throughout these little vlogs, I really want to do deep dives into the characters so you can really feel like you can get to know them. If and when you decide to purchase this book, whenever it ends up being published, I just want to give readers the resources that they need to decide whether or not they want to engage with the story. But yeah, so the story started as those 2 characters, and then I just kept building their family dynamics and their family units. What does their kingdom look like? Where am I taking inspiration from? Am I making sure that I'm doing this respectfully? Because I wanted kingdoms to sort of represent the diversity of cultures that we have in our world, right? Because I feel like with a lot of fantasy, it focuses on maybe one culture. What I wanted in this world was that each kingdom represents a different part of our world, which has taken a lot of research and a lot of time, because if you're taking inspiration from a real world culture, you don't want to create a caricature if you're making a fantasy world inspired by that culture. And then you also want to make sure that you're not doing like a cut and paste. You want it to be a fantasy kingdom. You don't want it to be this cut and paste of the real world. Or at least for me, that's not what I want when I'm writing a story. You want to take inspiration, you want to do it respectfully, and then also be able to make it its own thing while being honest as to where that inspiration is coming from. So that was very important to me. So then I started building out the world. Okay, now that I've built out the world, what is this greater conflict that we're interested in? And when it really started to take shape as an actual real story, I was like, oh my God, this could actually be like a book. I could make a book out of this. I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to actually be more structured in my plotting and outlining and making sure the arcs of my characters are complete and satisfying. So once it started to take shape as this like, oh wow, this is becoming a real thing, that was when I really buckled down and started to take it super seriously. I think I started writing in January of 2025, and it's been a little over a year and a half since then, and I have completed my first draft. I'm very, very proud of myself. This is not the first book that I've written, but this is the first one where I'm like, wait, this actually I could see this doing well. And I'm proud of the work that I've done and how far I've come in my writing skills thus far. But anyway, so writing process about a month ago, finished the 100K draft. Now, what do you do after that? Well, I have done a ton of research and talked to a bunch of different authors, and they've recommended like multiple drafts, basically to focus on different aspects of the writing. So this first draft is for a developmental edit. And for those of you who don't know what a developmental edit is, it is essentially an edit that looks at big picture aspects of the story. So do these character arcs make sense? For any romances in the story, do these romances feel complete? Do the revelations and confessions feel earned? You know, what about the family dynamics? Do we feel like there's an even distribution and exploration of the different family characters, or are they in there and maybe not as relevant? Could this be combined into one character? Are the themes present throughout? Various imagery that I wanted to evoke, right? Like that kind of vibe of plot and structure and character. Does this all make sense? Is this satisfying? And then for the following drafts, it gets a little bit more granular with, you know, picking out word choice and grammar and things like that. So that is not something I'm dealing with in this draft. Obviously, there's a couple things where I'm like, I'll just add this in here. But as I'm reading and I'm picking up a lot of parts that, oh, okay, I thought this was more complete when I first wrote it. This is something that I need to develop further. So I'm just going to show you my process. I printed it out. This has been immensely helpful for me because I think when we are sitting at a computer, it can be really easy to just kind of zone out and maybe miss certain things. But when I'm reading something on a piece of paper, there's different, I feel like, and I think there's some study that says this is actually true, where I feel like there's different parts of my brain that are engaged. So there are things that I'm catching reading the story on paper that maybe I wouldn't have noticed if I had just kept editing on my computer. So it came out to 379 pages, which is like a pretty decent size for a fantasy story. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is the bag that I carry my draft in. It is a $4 tote bag that I got from Kohl's on like extra triple dipple clearance. A triple dipple? What the fuck? But it's the cutest little bag. It's got a little strawberry. So if you see me around Boston carrying this, I'm planning to go to a cafe, get a chai latte, and work on this draft. So it's in this, oh my God. It's in this binder. Here we go. And I don't know, I may or may not blur this because I do kind of want to rework the first chapter. I went back and I realized that like it may be too dense of a first chapter. There are certain things where I feel like I want to be able to reel the reader in, and I don't know if I'm doing that as effectively with my first chapter. But also I've gone over it and I've worked through it so many times that I feel like maybe I need another set of eyes on it before I decide if I really want to change it, but I don't know. But basically, so this is the setup. So see all these little tabbies here? These are my children. These are the ones that are helping me on this journey. So with this page, you can kind of see my setup here. There's these little numbers that are circled, and that basically means, okay, the correction or the addition that I wanted to make in this section of the page is too big to fit onto this paper. So I have a supplementary notebook where I have all of the corrections and things that I'm adding. So some of them are fairly short. They're maybe like a sentence or two, but you can see one, and then I wrote the page number down. But I like the tabs too, because it's a nice show of like all the work that I've done. For example, this was how it was initially written. This is the one paragraph. Wisteria flicked her wrist in a familiar motion. An emerald green aura swirled from her staff, dancing around the dense wood with a subtle glow. The briars behind her sprouted in various directions. And then what I initially wrote was, they grew in thickness and formed a wall, blocking the bear's path. It huffed and muscled into a smaller one. But instead, I have the briars behind her sprouted in various directions, pulling from the depths of the wildwood, twisting and climbing to block the bear's path. I think that just sounds a lot better. If you disagree, let me know. But that's basically the vibe. And then for some of them, so like if you look at number 4 here, where's this page? Page 4. So there were some sections where even after I'd finished the draft, I had like bolded them and I was like, this needs to be developed and I can't just get it done on this computer. I'm going to print it out and I'm going to finish it as I'm editing through, which works for me because there were some, like with combat scenes in particular, those were harder for me to write. So for that, having it on paper, that has helped me actually develop and write what I need to write for this story. So number 4, as you can see, there's this whole section where I'm talking about leading them to an edge of the cliff in the woods where they live, to kind of look out over the Kingdom of Noblewood and give the reader a little bit of an introduction to the Kingdom of Noblewood, but also before these girls go on this journey to a different kingdom, they're kind of like having their last look at their home and like having like a moment of gratitude for it. So number 4, which is going to be for this section right here, I have a lot more written for that. That even goes on to the next page. And for some of these, like there were some of these where, again, for the combat in particular, it was pages and pages that I needed to write. You can see my handwriting. Like this whole section, which is essentially the intro chapter to the other like point of view. I'm doing third person limited because that's just what I enjoy the most in fantasy. I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy first person POV, but I feel like the only time I really love first person POV is when it's very stylized. Like a good example is The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafe by Shannon Chakraborty. She has a very like sarcastic, sardonic voice, which is very funny for me to read, and I enjoy it very much in this like epic fantasy story of her just being very clever and witty. So for that first person point of view, I think that's fun because it's something that's a unique perspective on a fantasy story. But with epic fantasy, I really like third person limited. But for the second like point of view, so to speak, that was introduced, there was a lot I needed to add in, and that was basically like all of these pages. Where did it start? Yeah, 13, I think. Yep. So like all of these. Whoop. Oh, there's 14. There we go. But yeah, I also have these little purple tabs. So the green tabs are for developing onto a larger surface into the notebook. Things that can't fit on the paper. But then I also have some of these purple tabs. And these purple tabs, these are maybe questions about development. So maybe needing one more conversation about Gladius, or maybe how he's been getting scarier and more bloodthirsty, not the same man Arinia knew. So this is one of the antagonistic characters, one of the dangers to the main family in this story. And it was something where I was like, do I want to take the time to write this and then maybe take it out? Or do I want to go back after doing like a full read through, write through, and see if it's actually necessary? Because you never want to give the reader too much. You don't want to like give away the story or the character or feel like you're talking down to the reader. You want to make sure that you're giving them just enough to keep them interested and for them to figure it out on their own. So that was one where I was like, okay, purple, I don't know if I need this, but just in case I do, I can go back and be like, yeah, actually looking through, I do think I need a little bit more to make him seem like he's like a danger. And then this lone pink tab, there is things that are misplaced in my draft. So for example, I feel like I did a pretty good job of making sure everything was in order, but occasionally there will be a scene, because I'll write out of order. I will like jump around. I know very few writers who they start at the first chapter and then they write until the end. I don't know a lot of writers that do that. I know many, many writers who they will outline first and then they will jump around and based on where they get inspiration. I am one of those writers. So that can lead to issues down the line if you're writing out of order and you don't always, put it back in the chronological order, in the correct order that those scenes are supposed to take place. So this was one where, remember to add this in later. I just have to move that into a different part of the story. But there's only one of those tabs. So, but there were parts here where different ideas I had for combat, totally scrapped and got rid of and then reworked it. I had certain ideas of how I wanted the magic introduced, and that changed because it felt like too much too fast, and I kind of wanted to ease the reader into it, where give them a little taste of the really cool stuff. Ooh, what is this? And then give them even more cool stuff, but only after they've earned it. So yeah, but I didn't want to do too much too fast. There were a couple more of these where I was like, I'm over-explaining this. This is being over-explained. This is something that we can, give via context without explicitly saying it. Let's see. Oh, and then there's this little orange tab, things for later. So there is a healing spell that is taught to our main character within the first 50 pages. And it's a healing spell that's kind of rooted in forbidden magic. Necromancy is the forbidden magic of the realm. Necromancy and blood magic are the two forbidden magics of the realm. But in this world, the idea that one could participate in druidic magic, for example, and not have any sort of necromantic magic involved is a fallacy. There's so much of the magic that is blended together that even though druidic magic is accepted and necromantic magic is not, they are often one and the same. They are far more intertwined than the powers that be would like to admit. With druidic magic, which is derived from nature in my world, there is always going to be a mix of life and death and dark and light, circle of life. In nature, we have the flowers that grow from the ground. They feed off of the sun, right? They are created from light. But then we also have things like mushrooms, decomposers, things that break down dead things, that literally thrive off of dead and dying things. They thrive in the darkness. They thrive in the damp. And that is still very much a part of nature, but it's not that same idea when we think of like light and warmth and life, So something that thrives off of death is this still druidic magic, being able to bring life from death. So that's kind of where it gets a little bit blurry. And that's why the druids are in the crosshairs of this impending conflict, because they exist at the crosshairs of what is acceptable in their society and what is not. So, and that creates problems and conflict, of course, as it often does in in epic fantasy and storytelling. But yeah, so as we go through, I have just got to 64 pages into my edit. And it looks thicker than it actually is because I only did one-sided, because I wanted room in case I wanted to write on the back of some pages. And also I purchased some pretty cheap paper, so I couldn't print double-sided because you could see the ink through the back. But that's okay. Let's just pretend that it was the first thing that I said where I was just thinking ahead and wanting to write on the back. But I'm 65. I'm 65 pages in, and I'm very, very proud of the work that I've done. I know that I have a lot of work left to do, of course, but I feel confident that I will be able to make a really great story out of this. My knowledge of story structure and storytelling, I feel like I have pretty good instincts, especially as someone who has enjoyed and critiqued movies and television and books for so many years now. Again, this is a long ways away, but I just wanted to do this as a quick little introduction. If you want me to tell you about my writing process, how I come up with characters, learning more about the drafting and editing process. Where I've gotten helpful information, I'll add some accounts that have been helpful to me. But if there's something specific you want to know about this story, about this writing process, about me as a writer, please ask, because for me, I'm like, I could talk about this for hours, but having a direction to go in that is actually helpful and can give people good advice that's what I want to do with this. Is share my life and hopefully help people that are in the process of drafting their own story. As I'm writing this one, or excuse me, as I'm editing this one, I am also in the process of writing 2 more, I would say probably more commercially aligned stories. I have one that's inspired by the Addams Family, and basically like if Debbie were to like actually join the Addams Family, what that would be like. I have another one that is about like a band. I watched Daisy Jones and the Six and I was like, oh wait, I kind of want to write a story that has this vibe. So I have a couple other things that I'm working on. I already have an idea for what I want the second book to be, because I want it to be a duology. We're not doing a trilogy. That's just too much. But I do have more story to tell after this one. So I'm planning for 2 books. And with 2 very distinct vibes. Like the first book is not going to be like the second book. The second book is going to be more intense. But anyways, this has been kind of a little bit of a ramble. Again, hopefully this is helpful. And let me know if there's anything specific that you want to know. I would love to do another writing vlog. This is so nice. I'm about to do some more editing. I just finished another script for my Happy Pancake channel, and I'm doing this as a little bit of a reward for you did your hard work, the horrible, underbelly of the world. Now it's time to escape into a fantasy world and hang out with some of your favorite characters. So I'm gonna go do that now, and I'll see you next time. As always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Very special thank you to Bagel's dad, Derek, Anonymous, Tiny Axes, Robin Fellows, Iron Dragon, and Laura Bell.